There we go, live.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited today to be joined by the other host of this lovely podcast, Miss Claudia Mason. I'll let you give yourself a little intro.
Hey, Vanessa. Hey, everyone. So good to be here. It's wonderful to be joining Vanessa today. And of course, our third musketeer is Phil, who is behind the scenes, Phil Soloninka, the director of ICF, Austin Membership Committee. And
Yeah.
it's so good to be here. And, as a certified professional coach, it is such a pleasure to be doing. I've done so many podcasts in my different careers throughout my life, Vanessa, and been on both sides, been interviewed, been the interviewee, been the interviewer, and this is so much fun to have this whole theme of coaches and the coaching industry, which is such a growing industry. And there's
Yeah.
not it's not an easy kind of definition when people who don't know our industry go, well, what the hell does a coach do? So, it's so great to help people understand, and the difference between those of us who've gone through heavy, intense certification like you and I and Phil, as opposed to people who haven't. There's room for all, I say. But it is
Yeah.
great to come from the perspective we come from.
And I love having these conversations and the guests that we bring in because you get to also learn about the variety of offerings, right? So
Yes.
we've already had two great people on, and then, of course, Jerry today. But before
Yes.
we jump in with Jerry, I always love to go over what's coming up for the ICF Austin. February flew by. I literally don't know how it's March in 2 days.
I know.
So before we get into March, we do actually have a great event coming up tomorrow night from 6 to 8, 3 ways to make it easy for clients to invest in you just by pinpointing your ROI. I hope to be joining that. I have like a double thing, so I'm either going to join in and listen in the background or catch the recording, but I'm excited to learn about that. And then we have coming up on March 10th, our virtual coaching conversations, which I was bummed I missed last month because Phil said they had a beautiful conversation. So come one, come all. It doesn't
Yes.
matter where you are in your journey on this coaching path, but we love having those conversations. It's a free for all, just whatever comes up is what we chat about. And it's always something different and exciting. And then I see two other things coming up for March 28th. So from 10 to 11 on March 28th, the ICF Credential Webinar Part 2, the ICF Advanced Certification in Team Coaching, that's a new offering, is one that's out of the New York ICF chapter. And then from 6 to 8 on March 28th is How to Build Your Business by Speaking, the Inside Scoop. So many fun things coming up. And then it's just even more robust as the year goes on. So I'm
Yep.
excited for all, like you mentioned, right? It's such a big world that's just continuously growing. So it's really cool to
Yes.
see how much Austin does.
Yes, Austin, and then the other cities and towns throughout the world. It is global.
Yeah.
Um, Great. So shall we get right to introducing our guest here,
Yeah.
Vanessa? What do you
Yeah.
say? Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah. So Jerry Fu, and I don't know if you have that written down. I don't. Is it Dr. Jerry Fu or is it Jerry Fu? He will tell us. He is a pharmacist. That is part of his background. And I think he said he's also a salsa dancer is how he defines himself, which I think was awesome. Can't wait to hear about that. And both of those backgrounds, how they influence him, of course, as a coach. And the whole idea of, which I think is so relevant today, conflict resolution, which is one of his areas of expertise in the Asian American community. We'll hear about that. I really found it fascinating while researching him about the conflict within himself. As a spiritual life coach myself, it's always about the inner life. I wrote a book about that. It's always, always about the inner life. All the great teachers throughout the ages have spoken about you must go within first. So I really look forward to hearing what he has to say about how his own inner conflict informed his journey right now, as a conflict resolution coach, and how he brings that to any of his clients,
Yeah.
and specifically the Asian American community. And we know with the times, there's so much going on between all ethnic groups and never ends the human story. So I so much to very interesting guest we have. So we look forward to starting with him.
Yeah, without further ado, let's get him in here.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hi.
It's nice to see you. I know we've met before in the virtual coaching conversations, and I'm not sure if you met Claudia before, but she's a co-host here on the podcast. We were just giving a little intro, but obviously it's best from your mouth. So if the floor is yours to give your intro.
Sure. Yeah. I'm all sorts of messed up, really, right? Just all sorts of mix of cultures and things. And you just have to figure out, okay, in the middle of all this culture, right? Whether it's ethnic culture or work culture, what's most helpful, what's most useful. And yeah, a big theme with a lot of the things you mentioned with my bio, it comes with starting with the correct mindset, because the biggest reason for my growth was when I approached life with the growth mindset around the possibility of me being a good leader, possibility of me actually handling conflict more effectively, and the possibility of even me becoming a good salsa dancer, right? Until I believed that these things were possible, they couldn't be possible. And to trust that with enough time and effort, and that there would be fruit and, good things that would come of all this investment of what we did. So. Yeah.
Jerry, let me ask you, because that's such a great way to start. So what happened? Tell us your story in terms of what made you want to go down this path. What was the turning point? What was the pivot that went, in order to be a da-da-da, I have to go within. What's my mindset? All that you said, what happened? Tell us, because that's what the listeners want to hear, right? And that helps inform about the coaching industry and what we coaches have to offer. Thanks, Jerry.
Absolutely. Yeah. Of all the main Genesis moments, I think the key one was when I was actually working in Austin between jobs. I had gotten displaced to Austin working for a company that couldn't pay me more than 8 hours a week in Houston. And so they said, hey, you can get more hours in Austin. I said, beggars can't be choosers. I could end up in worse cities, right? So I said, all right, I have no idea what my life is going to look like. And that summer, this was 11 years ago now, 11 years, that was when my friends who ran a pharmacy leadership nonprofit first asked me to help facilitate some leadership seminars. And so up until that point, right, I'd actually gotten fired from the job I moved to Houston for. And so I was struggling with a lot of confidence and a lot of identity and what does this even mean? And so up until then, I had a very fixed mindset about my ability to become a leader. I just said, I tried a couple of tough conversations. I tried bossing people around. It didn't work, and I don't, it's not worth my time and effort to get better at this, because I'm not seeing any results. So let me just avoid this entirely. And then, teaching material seems to do something to people, right? When you say, what if I could be a good leader, right? And I allow for that possibility. And, don't get me wrong, like it didn't happen overnight, right? It wasn't just like, boom, done, microwave leadership, right? That book doesn't exist and it won't sell very well, I promise you, right? And so, and after a while, you realize, hey, you know what? I don't have to go this route by myself. If I'm struggling to find a solution, I've tried a couple of things. Hey, you know what? There are other people out there that are further down the path, right, and have already solved my problem. And so they kind of speak some wisdom into me. And I say, all right, well, even if they give me the recipe, it's still up to me to bake the bread. And so let me go ahead and try and iterate. And the more you try and refine, then you realize, hey, you know what? I'm actually making some progress. And so another Genesis moment was when my previous pharmacy job went under because of insurance drama and other things. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of chasing scripts. I'm tired of, fighting insurance contracts, but I love this people development. What will it take for me to have a career in facilitating coaching the way in which I had been coached in order to change my mindset around becoming a leader, to save people 6-7 years of just struggle, fail, if that's the path, if that's the time it takes for you to realize the lesson is great. But what if we could speed that up just a little bit, right? And then again, still very scared of rejection and failure, right? I just said, I could never be a good business owner. I could never charge, thousands of dollars for coaching packages, right? Like you just tell yourself you can't. And then the pandemic hit while I was in the middle of my coach training. And I said, all right, now I'm hanging around other coaches that have successful businesses. And I said, well, how much longer are you going to put this dream off? And so that was the start of my LLC.
How great.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I feel like you touched on so many key points, right? The biggest one I heard so much is the community that you surround yourself by, right? And I love the ICF Austin chapter because I too went through schooling and it was great. And I've met some close people in that community, but it's really great to get out of the house now that we can. You brought up the pandemic and see people. And Austin has such a beautiful group of coaches and I've met such great people here. So I couldn't agree with you more that the community is really powerful in helping you grow because it is a very solitary thing when you're trying to grow the business on your own. So it's really nice when you have like-minded folks that can support you on that journey.
Yes. Jerry, tell us about, so with the Asian American community, conflict resolution, my God, when you think of the world and hot topics and all the different ethnic groups, all the struggles that humans go through from time immemorial, right? But here we are right now with our specific set of problems in the world. And here you are as a coach and all of your background. I mean, a pharmacist, that's so interesting. How does that inform conflict resolution, your background, and why the Asian American community?
Yeah. Part of the culture, right, that I grew up in was to follow the rules, right? You're not allowed to even question why, just to get context. You're just supposed to take things at face value because, whether your parents know best or the school knows best or the company knows best, you're not allowed to, or, the limits they insist on are the ones you embrace yourself, right? And so when you try to stand your ground, when the customer wants something unreasonable or inappropriate or possibly even, unlawful, and then when you try to stand your ground and the company just says, hey, just give them a gift card, apologize. We can't afford to lose their business, right? They spend a lot of money here. And so, you go home wondering when you'll have a spine, right? And so between companies telling me this and then my culture also telling me this, right? When I'm asked to work extra shifts and my parents say, no, if the boss needs you, you need to just help them. It doesn't matter how unfair or unreasonable the request, you help them. At one point, I gave 200 hours in extra shifts to my company because I just didn't know I could say no, right? Or if I was afraid that I might get written up or I could get fired or I might secretly be in my boss's, bad graces, right? And so that's the heart I have to people that say, hey, I'm not happy with this. How am I going to say no to a boss who keeps, adding more projects to my already full plate, right? What do I do with people from other departments that say, hey, I need you to help me out with this, and I need to tell them no without feeling like I'm selfish, right? And so to allow people from similar backgrounds to say, hey, you know what, no is okay, right? Let's help you negotiate, let's help you stand your ground, let's help you advocate for yourself so that you don't have to be afraid of situations where you're afraid that disappointing them initially is actually going to cost you in the long run.
And you describe, and this is your journey that you went on with yourself. It always begins with oneself before we put the oxygen mask on yourself before your child, right? So,
Yes.
so it's always that. But your experiences you've been sharing with us, and then what has the result of or maybe I should ask, what are your steps? Would you like to share with us what you want to share in terms of how you find it more effective or most effective conflict resolution within the Asian American community, or would you like to focus on any client, no matter what their ethnic background is?
I mean, I can focus. I can overlay a situation and then we'll overlay the framework over it. And,
Great.
regardless of whether or not you're of the race that I'm referring to, hopefully the pain points are still something that resonate with you, right? So I'll give an example from the time, around the time of the Asian hate crimes in Atlanta. Actually, I was at an in-person multicultural networking event in Houston as places were starting to open up. And I meet an older gentleman who happens to be white. And, he asked me, he's like, hey, these Asian hate crimes, are you seeing any problems personally? Is this really that big a deal? Right. And, I thought to myself, people are dying, this is never a good thing. Right. He had some merit to say, is this just media sensationalism? Right. Because it is. Technically, these crimes have been going on for a while. And it just so happens that media won't cover it unless they get some ratings and some money out of it. Right? So, and with this in mind, they said, all right, how do I engage this guy? Right. Do I just say, this isn't the hill I want to die on. Let me just kind of answer his question politely and then just kind of, disengage and move on to the next person? Or do I want to make this an interesting learning moment? And so I chose the latter. And so my 5 steps are this that I give away on my website. Number 1 is to imagine what a successful conversation might sound like, right? So I have to decide on the outcome that I want. It's like, do I want to, is success, embarrassing him, right? And just calling him out for a statement I think that could be wrong or inappropriate? Do I just want to maybe offer him some insight or something to think about? Or is success just saying, hey man, success would simply be, hey, let me just get out of here with that potential escalating conversation, right? So in my mind, I said, you know what, maybe it's possible that I could, stretch him just a little bit and just give him something to think about. And then, that'll be the end of it, right? I'm not here to change his mind. I'm just happy to just, maybe expand his perspective a bit. The second step is to have 10 seconds of courage, right? And so 10 seconds of courage is something for people that are conflict averse like me, right? We need something to set the boulder in motion and lock the gate behind us, because otherwise we're just going to rationalize and we're just going to downplay the situation and we're going to procrastinate, as opposed to just finding a way in the moment just to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to dance in the moment, right? We talk about this in the ICF core competencies. So literally dancing, whether it's salsa dancing or conversation dancing, hey, you know what? We're going to improv our way forward. We're just going to make sure that we have no choice but to get on the floor and do something, right? Third step is to script your critical phrases. So quick, like whether some people may need more time to prep, maybe they like to script the critical phrases knowing that they need a little more time for prepare. In this moment, right, this is more improvisation. So in my mind, I said, okay, let me grab onto one thing I want him to marinate on. Okay, so then 4th step is to rehearse, right? So in this case, I didn't have a lot, but in my mind, I'm just going to, okay, how would I verbalize this quickly, right? And then step 5 is to follow through. So real quickly, 3, 4, and 5, I said, all right, we'll call him Tim. Hey, Tim, did you know, may I first ask permission, right? And let me make sure that I have his consent before I say anything. So that way it's not like I'm blindsiding him. I said, may I share an interesting fact with you? And he's like, sure. And I said, did you know that Houston's Chinatown is built on discrimination? And he goes, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, there's a point where the city officials felt all the immigrants that were coming to the city were a threat to the status quo. And so they sequestered all the immigrants in one part of the city. And then, to add insult to injury, they drew up the districts in such a way where they couldn't concentrate all their population into a vote. So that doesn't sound very good. I was like, you're right, it's not. And so here's the thing. Right? I told him, I was like, have I experienced any verbal or physical racial abuse as a result of these hate crimes that are going on? I said, no, and I'm thankful. And there's a bigger system of discrimination that is not okay just because people are getting hurt. Oh yeah, I just said, look, I'm not here to embarrass anybody. I just thought it'd be an opportunity to share something that might help you to think, right? And so this isn't a conversation I would have bothered with like 2 or 3 years ago, right, prior to that, right? Because I just sort of said, nope, not worth my time. There are times, right, where if it could result in physical violence, yeah, I'm not encouraging that for anybody. I'm not encouraging people to just kick up dust if it's not a safe moment. But I am hoping that people can embrace the idea that, hey, you know what? If something's not okay, I can run toward that and maybe just pull at the thread just a little bit just to see if there's something there that I can either. If there isn't, then okay, no harm, no foul. But if there is, okay, now we're gonna maybe just make this a little more interesting.
Oof, and it's
I love that.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, no, go on. I was just going to say, I love that because I think it can apply to across races, right? Because to Claudia's point, this is coming up a lot. It's always been a problem, right? But I love the idea of giving the courage in that structure. I like what you said about think about what you're doing and what outcome you want, right? And it can apply to so many relationships, both interpersonal or with somebody you meet who says something crazy or, at work. I feel like it's really applicable. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's on your website? We're going to drop your website.
adaptingleaders.com/guide. I mean, it's a free download. Just check it out. I've made it pay dividends in your life, right? I mean, I can share the recipe and I can't make you cook anything you don't want to cook though, right? Like some people will settle for that. They're like, oh, I got this and I read through it and I feel good about myself. And if that's enough for you, great. But where's the application, right? That's what I was called out on. I remember just trying to learn about leadership, and I would read more books, right? And people would tell me, wow, Jerry, you share a lot of great insights. So where's the application, right? Like, so you've showed off this great toolbox. So what are you going to build with it, right? So, but yeah, let's start there. adaptingleaders.com/guide.
Oh, great. And when you were talking before too, the whole mindset, it starts with you, as you were sharing, as we know, such a big theme. And the idea of being in the discomfort. You wouldn't have had that conversation with Tim, we're calling him, 2 years ago. So what's different about you, and what are you able to bring to this conflict resolution, this potentially difficult conflict, discussion of conflict? How are you going to help resolve? Well, this is what we have to do as coaches, right? I mean, this is a conversation we're having. I'm assuming it's not as you were, not his coach, as you had explained, but it's the whole idea of bringing it back to the coaching. So where is the coach coming from, which is what I'm hearing from you. And then, how can you sit in discomfort? Because they're going to be sitting in discomfort. He comes to you with, having a problem. So how do you resolve that? It's just fascinating how you've come up with that. Yeah.
I mean, it took refining, right? It was like I certainly didn't. I'm not going to take credit for coming to this on my own, right? Like as Newton said, right? If I'm able to see farther than anyone else, I've stood on the shoulders of the giants, right? So.
Of course. No. Yes, that's for sure. Nothing new under the sun. We just have to keep relearning and growing, and that starts with us. Absolutely. So again, with you. So interesting to me, and Vanessa, let me know if you have anything here, or Jerry, you'll see if you want to answer this. But I keep thinking of you with your background, pharmacist, and then salsa dancer, right? The arts. I come from the performing arts, so how that whole idea we have, and I'm going to try to be brief with my questions. Excuse me, but everyone thinks of team sports, and that's the only place you learn as a kid the team idea through sports. No. The arts. I mean, that's as much or not more than what you get the same thing. So how did the salsa dancing, or you mentioned it again, inform where you're at with conflict resolution as a coach today, if at all?
Yeah. There's absolutely overlap. I actually have a great blog post where I talk about how leading on the dance floor helps you lead beyond it. And this idea, right? Like, as if you're initiating this conflict, you set the tone, right? If you're leading on the dance floor, you set the tone. If I have fun, my follow is going to have fun, right? If I'm struggling to, set a good tone, or if I'm struggling to enjoy myself and I'm too much in my head and not just present in the moment, right? My partner's going to pick up on that. And so she might be a professional, right? She might make the most of her situation and still try to have fun. But I, as the leader, I put the ceiling on it, right? And so part of it is, when you lead, you have to know where you're going. Even if it's just 2 or 3 steps ahead, you still need to know where you're going, right? There's an aspect we could talk about chess and the strategy there, or, hey, this is the sequence I need to go through, right? And so when you initiate conflict, you need to have that target in mind. And as we like to say, right, no plan survives attack by reality or the enemy. And so you say, okay, now that, if my target is still here, but maybe an unexpected wave crashes into my boat. Okay, how do I make sure I still can find a way to reach my destination, or still stay on track with the next couple of moves in place? And part of it is just recognizing, hey, you know what? I have these 5 steps. Maybe I improv them. Maybe I shuffle them. As long as I know, the principles that I'm guided by. I'm not so rigid in my approach.
Yeah. And I would say that is, to me, the beauty of coaching and what you can offer up as a coach, right? Is like coming up with how you overcome the obstacles, right? Like, what does this look like? But to your salsa point, I think that's beautiful, because by building the confidence and having somebody who's in your corner, it's like, okay, what else can I do? Right? Like you said, this has been a journey to that. And that's what I love about coaching as well, is that people, once you open up your mind to like, oh, wow, there's so much more that I can do. And now I have all these tools in my toolbox. What else can I do? I've always liked this thing, but I've been too nervous. But now, you can talk through it with somebody who can support you in achieving whatever those goals are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's to that point where coaches expose that conflict, right? In the session, you're going to deal with people and they say, oh, I have this conflict between, oh, I'm just this nice popular guy versus I have to be this, unpopular leader and make difficult decisions. And you say, okay, how will you deal with this conflict, right? There's the conflict of identity. There's a conflict in mindset. No, I could never do this. Oh yeah, well, how about what if we say it? Well, who's telling you this, right? Is that true, right? And you have that conflict of shifting, right? You're just like, well, this is what I'm used to, and this is what I'm going to default to. And even though I know it's not going to lead me anywhere useful, like it feels familiar, so I just kind of want to stay on the shoreline as opposed to start to swim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jerry, as we have to wrap our episode up with you, we're starting to wrap up now, what is something that you'd really want to leave the audience with? What is something that perhaps you haven't said, or something you've said that you want to expand on about who you are and your whole raison d'être, right, for doing what you do? Is there something?
Yeah, this insight, I guess, came up for me and for another podcast I was recently on, where I basically told people and had to tell myself, with conflicts and difficult conversations, let's say this doesn't go well, and they say, "Oh, well, Jerry, I followed your 5 steps in it, and I still, I'm not anywhere closer." And the mentality that I have to tell myself, and that I will share with this person, is failure doesn't mean you're done. Failure means you're not done. Right. And that's what I would try to drive home, is when, for example, I had to evict a roommate at one point. Right. And the first time I tried to ask him to pay up his rent, he just basically gave me the runaround or gave me a no. And it's like, OK, do I give up? Do I just say, oh, well, that sucked, and I guess I'll never be good at this? It's like, no, he either needs to pay up or leave the house. Right. So, in this case, you say, hey, you know what? Celebrate the fact that you tried and it didn't work. So based on this, right, celebrate the fact that now you have evidence that you can evaluate, and then you can adjust. And that's what I would tell people, because that's what I realized for myself. Same thing with being a leader, right? Oh, well, you failed in this regard. It's like, well, are you done? It's like, no, I'm not. I need to learn and adjust and try again, and see how things might go better for me. So be kind to yourselves, guys. It's a process, but if you're willing to do the work and the time and surround yourself with the right people, I mean, what's going to stop you, right?
Amen. Be kind to
I
yourself.
love
I
that.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that was
a great
great.
way to end. Yeah.
Yeah. And before we completely wrap up, can you just share again, because you mentioned a blog, but your website and how people can contact you one more time?
Certainly. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I bill myself as a conflict resolution coach for Asian American leaders. But yeah, the best way and the most generous way is to just check out the website, adaptingleaders.com. You can check out the free blog. You can book a complimentary 30-minute call, or download the free guide. As we said, was adaptingleaders.com/guide.
Adapting, ADAPTING. I know Phil has this, but leaders.com / please say again.
Guide, GUIDE. Yep.
GUIDE. Okay, I just wanted to put it for our records. Great. Well, any other handles you want us to display, or is that good?
That we'll start with those for now. I barely have time for that one, so I have no time for others.
We understand. Boy, the world is spinning. Yes. Thank you so much, Jerry. Wasn't this great, Vanessa? This is awesome.
Oh, it was so great. I really appreciate your willingness to jump on. We had talked about this in the virtual coaching conversations, and here we are, right? This podcast came up with just an idea between Phil and Claudia and I, and here we are. And because of everybody's great support, we'll also link in the description that we're going to open up more slots, because everybody wants to talk, and we're just having such a great time with these conversations. So thank you again, Jerry. It was such a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.